But I want to take you all with me to Israel. What's the best location? Here we go. I want to take y'all with me to Israel. So this is the third trip. This will be my third trip to the Holy Land, and my wife has gone 3 times already as well. And this will be my third time with this same company. So I have a bunch of information to give you, but I want to get you excited first. First of all, we changed the date slightly. We changed it to the same date that we've taken the last 2 trips, which will be, we're leaving the Thursday before Thanksgiving, and we're going to go over Thanksgiving break. We're going to come back the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So it's a total of 9 days from door to door, from Birmingham Airport back to Birmingham Airport. It's 9 days. We find that this works best for folks who are working, and it's hard to take 9 days off consecutively. That means you'll miss Thanksgiving with your family. So for some of you, maybe that's an asset. Maybe that's a good reason to come. For some, maybe that's a hardship, but we will spend Thanksgiving together. And so I can guarantee this, it will be a unique Thanksgiving in your life. And I'm sure we'll do something special. But we've changed the date slightly. This company that we're going with, and I'll talk about them in a little bit, they're called EO, Educational Opportunities. And if you can get enough folks to go, if you can get kind of a mass, then we can kind of create our own dates. Otherwise, you have to get plugged into larger groups. But I think we're going to have enough that we're able to do this. And so I think they've already said we can commit November 16th through the 24th, 2023. The most important, I'm going to go into a lot of the details, and I'm going to break it down kind of exactly what we're going to do every day and what that's going to look like. But the first things first, I want you to be excited. What are we going to do? Like, why are we going at all? This is, here's kind of our basic itinerary. But this is the place where Jesus lived. This is the place where, like, since you were a little child, you read every single story about Jesus, about the Old Testament. You're reading about these places. We're talking about it every single Sunday. You've seen pictures of it your whole life. And to go and actually stand in those places, to breathe that air, to smell the smells, to like physically touch the limestone bricks in the walls is really transformative. It's really profound. I think every Christian should go to the Holy Land. It's not exactly a pilgrimage because we don't believe that Jesus is still there. So it's not like you have to go, but it's a place like where it comes so alive. It really becomes this whole new dynamic of, in the same way that maybe if you go to the Louvre and you see the Mona Lisa in person, you say, wow, I've seen pictures of the Mona Lisa, but to like stand in front of it is, so awe-inspiring. So it's 9-day total trip from door to door. And a lot of that is traveling. So the first day and a half, 2 days, is going from the United States to Israel. It's a little bit wonky because we'll fly from Birmingham or wherever you're at. The goal is to get to New York City. And from New York City, I think from JFK, they have an overnight flight. The way the world turns, it's a weird experience because from here to Israel is like a 10-hour flight. But we'll leave at like 6 o'clock at night or something, or 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. And we're going to get there at like 6 o'clock at night. Just the way the movement of the earth, that one-shot deal, it's discombobulating. And so the best thing to do is, even though you get on the plane and you're like all amped up and you're all excited, for me, the best thing to do is take like a melatonin or something and try to sleep as much as you can, even though once you get there, you're going to go back to sleep. But we're going to leave and arrive on the second day and go to bed. And then the adventure begins. The first night, we're going to stay in Bethlehem, which is in Palestine. So we're going to go into the Palestinian territory. It's safe. It'll be abundantly safe. Palestine is broken up into different sections, and there are safer areas than others, but the area around Bethlehem is going to be perfectly safe for us. But it is, a deeply impoverished place. And you're going to notice as soon as we leave Bethlehem, as soon as we leave and we drive through the gates back into Jerusalem, it goes from third world country to first world country, just driving through the gates. So there's going to be a huge difference in the hotel we stay in Bethlehem versus where we stay and the food we eat everywhere else. Everywhere else, the only time we're going to be in Palestine is just going to be at that one-shot deal, staying in Bethlehem. But of course, that's where Jesus was born. And so that's where the Church of the Nativity is. And I think it's really profound life experience to go into Palestine. You're hearing about the geopolitics all the time, and to go and actually see it, and actually see the walls, and to see the guard towers, and to see the policing that goes on is really profound. The next day we'll go to Qumran, the Dead Sea, and Jericho. I'm guessing that night we'll spend the night in Galilee, on the Sea of Galilee, probably in Tiberias. But Qumran is the area where John the Baptist was. So last week was the baptism of Jesus. So Qumran is the place where we think John the Baptist probably hung out. It's where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it literally overlooks the Dead Sea. So from Qumran, we can look down and we can see kind of the water. Then we'll go to the Dead Sea. It's really kind of gross, but also kind of awesome. It is the lowest point on earth, and it's been shrinking over the last 50 years to where it's, just a fraction of the size it was. But it's also, the Dead Sea. So it's like they're so thick with salts and minerals. It's a pretty funky experience. But if we go, I'll definitely get in the water and float. And then we'll go to Jericho. And Jericho is one of the oldest cities in the world. I think that they claim to be the oldest walled city in the world. Of course, that's where the Israelites crossed into. They crossed, as they're coming up into the promised land, and they were led by Joshua. They crossed into Jericho. The walls of Jericho came tumbling down, and they crossed in. So then we'll have a Galilee adventure on the it says the third day, but I mixed up the numbers. That'll be like, I guess, the fifth day. Then we'll have an adventure around Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is like quite small, so we'll be able to hit kind of all the hot spots of Galilee. We'll go and see where the traditional place where we believe Peter's mother lived. We'll go and see different places on various seashores. We'll go across to the Gentile section where it could have been that Jesus was casting out demons. And we'll probably take a boat ride across the Sea of Galilee. Between those 2 days, one of those places we will get into the Jordan River. And so if we want to renew our baptismal vows, say our prayers, to go from the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee, we're going to follow the line of the Jordan River straight up to the Sea of Galilee, where you have the country Jordan on the other side, and we'll pass the West Bank on one side and the Jordan country on the other. And then, as we're coming back from Galilee, on the 6th day, we'll stop at Nazareth, which was the home of Mary, the mother of Jesus. There's an amazing church there. We'll go to Tel Megiddo, which is it's the Valley of Armageddon. I think in Greek we would say like Armageddon. It's the site of most of the battles in the Old Testament. It's the valley where all the great wars were fought. From there, we're going to see the places where like Elijah sacrificed and fought it out with the prophets of Baal. We'll be able to see some really cool places around Megiddo. It's also where a lot of just world history passed through, whether it was the Egyptian armies or the Assyrian armies or the Babylonian armies. They were all kind of fighting and marching through Megiddo. And we'll go to Caesarea Maritima. Caesarea Maritima is something that was built by King Herod. There's a beautiful amphitheater that's been really well preserved. There's the harbor that he built. And it's a chance to kind of take us back to those Roman days and see some of the Roman construction on the way to Jerusalem. And then we'll spend 2 days in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, there's just an abundance of amazing places. So I'll show you some things. So like here, we have a picture of the Wailing Wall in the top left corner. There's the Wailing Wall and the Temple Mount, and you see the Dome of the Rock. That's that kind of golden dome. It's a mosque for the last 1,000 years or whatever. And the Wailing Wall is the best preserved and the largest retaining wall from what was the original second temple that King Herod had rebuilt. Right below that picture, you see kind of Qumran. You see the deserts near the Dead Sea and surrounding the Dead Sea. Here's a really pretty picture at the top right corner of the Dead Sea that it doesn't always look like that, but you can just see like the salt, just the thick salt deposits. And on the lower right-hand side is the Church of the Nativity in Jerusalem, or in Bethlehem. So, a lot of these places we go to, it's like, well, we don't know if Jesus was born right here, or if he was born 5 feet over this way, or if he was born 20 feet in that direction. And so there's like a physical star where they say, this is the spot where Jesus was born. It's like, well, we don't know if that's actually the physical spot, but we know somewhere around here. And the church is big enough that it's probably covering that space. And it's also been the church, there's been a church there for about 1,500 years. And there's a lot of amazing history in that as well. So then in the top left corner here, you see the Sea of Galilee, which is absolutely beautiful and stunning. We'll go to the Church of the Beatitudes, and this is a picture from like the Church of the Beatitudes. It is just gorgeous. Looking down over the rolling hills, the sea itself is so beautiful. In the top right corner, you see Caesarea Maritima. You can kind of see the amphitheater and some of the Roman ruins that we would go through. On the bottom left is Nazareth. Nazareth is like a really small town. It's still a really small town, but it's an even smaller town when Mary was growing up there. And we can see, we don't know again exactly where she lived, but they think there's a traditional place where they say this could have been Mary's home, and there's a giant church built over top of it. And here on the bottom right is Tel Megiddo, which is in this valley. It's in the valley kind of between Nazareth and the area where, like Mount Carmel in the mountains where Elijah was. And this is also kind of the abundant valley. This is like the rich, fertile valley of Israel, where it's farmland, it's grassland, it's the land that literally flows with milk and honey. So while we're in Jerusalem, we'll have a chance to hopefully do a lot of stuff. Hopefully we'll have a chance to go to the Temple Mount. We'll be able to go to several different churches like Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Hopefully we'll be able to eat some really amazing food. And also we're going to spend the night, 2 nights in Jerusalem. Jerusalem's just a magnificent city. Around the city are the Roman walls of the old city. And then the city kind of sprawls out from there. And we will stay within an easy walking distance of the city itself. And so in the morning, if you want to wake up, I might want to wake up and go for a run before breakfast. You can get up and go for a jog inside the old city of Jerusalem, or you can go for a walk after supper at night. It's because, there are tensions in the Near East. There's a really big security presence. And so therefore it's really, really safe. And I always feel extremely safe. And Jerusalem is the first world country. Jerusalem is a modern city. The hotel we stay in Jerusalem will be as nice or nicer than any hotel you'll stay in America. It's going to be significantly nicer than like a Marriott. Now it'll be in contrast to where we stay in Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem is going to be not quite as nice because it's in a Palestinian territory and there's a lot of economic sanctions. So that's like the general outline of the trip. So we'll do everything that one needs to do to go say, I went to Israel and I did the things. What I've found in my experience is this is about the right amount and the right duration of the trip. Every day is pretty packed, and we're going to be able to, but we'll also be able to move it at somewhat leisurely of a pace where you don't have to be running through, you don't have to be like racing through the Temple Mount. Of course, there's some flexibility. Going onto the Temple Mount and kind of walking around where the Dome of the Rock is can be subject to whether or not they're letting Christians up there. At various times, wherever the tensions are with the Jews, they may or may not let Jews to the Temple Mount. Most often they do let Christians and tourists and Americans, but occasionally they shut it down for whatever reason. And, we get there and they might say it's not available. And so then this is the kind of view we'll have. We'll be able to see it and get really, really close. No matter what, we'll be able to walk up to the Wailing Wall. But from the Wailing Wall, you have to walk up a series of steps, and then you have to go through a security corridor because it's controlled by Muslims. And so there's tension, obviously, between Muslims and Jews. There's not much tension between the Christians because everybody really enjoys those Christian dollars and the Christian tourists. So whether there are tensions or not, it's not directed at us. And I'll kind of get more into that in a second. Of course, in Jerusalem, we'll also do things like the Mount of Olives. We'll walk, through the Garden of Gethsemane, through the Hinnom Valley, and come and tour all over, everything that you can fit into Jerusalem. Like, in what I hope you also understand if you come on this trip, I hope you also see everything's very, very small in Jerusalem. So it's easy to navigate in an hour the entire city by foot. And so if we spend 2 days walking around, it'll give us plenty of time to experience. We'll go through things like the upper room. Again, is this the exact upper room where Jesus ate his Last Supper? It's hard to say, but there's a lot of reasons why they think it probably is. We'll be able to go to Caiaphas' house, where I think it's very reasonable. We said this is the dungeon where Jesus was held when Jesus was arrested, and after the Last Supper. So we will be able to see that dungeon and go down and experience that. So, big question: how much does it cost? It's hard to say exactly until I know a final number of how many of us are going, because as they're putting the trip together, it depends on the bus size and it depends on the hotels for these dates. And so I want to get an exact number of how many people are coming before we can lock it down. But it's going to be about 3,500. It could be a little less. I doubt it'd be more, but like if you budgeted for about 3,500 for the entire experience, I think you'd be safe just budget wise. It'll be about 3,500. Hopefully it'll be a little less. What does that include? That'll include everything. That'll include from the time you get dropped off at the airport until you get picked up. Of course, like in the airports, you'll have to like buy your own food. But like once you land, well, I should say it covers everything from arriving in Israel airport to being dropped off at the Israel airport. So if you want food in New York, or if you want food in Birmingham, that's on you. But that covers literally everything, airfare, it covers insurance, that'll cover all the hotels, the buses, all the meals, everything you have in those 9 days. Again, I want to emphasize that, like, if you're not great at flying, it does take a lot. There's not going to be much time for acclimating. Once we land on the ground, like, it's kind of go time. So we will leave at night, kind of late at night, and then we're going to arrive at night. So whether you sleep on the plane or not, I definitely recommend once we get to our hotel in Bethlehem, you go straight to sleep and try your very best. What we'll probably do is go to the hotel and hold on 1 second. I have to go tell my children to simmer down. Hold on 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. So share my screen again. So it'll be weird flying times. And then when we wake up the next morning, it's go time. So like there's some jet lag involved, although I think the jet lag is usually worse coming back. But it's not easy. And if you're somebody who like really suffers with jet lag, or that's something to take into consideration. It's a limited time period, and so there's not a ton of time for adjustment. I've never found it that hard going because I try to sleep as much as I can on the plane, and as soon as I arrive, it doesn't matter how much I've been sleeping. I try to sleep at night as soon as we get to Israel. But if you're able to take something like melatonin, that kind of takes the edge off or makes it a little bit easier for you to fly, that'll make life a lot better. There will be lots of walking, and I recommend that you share a room with somebody. You don't have to share a room, but it's a lot more expensive to not. I think it's something between $600 to $800 more expensive to have your own room. Hey, if that doesn't bother you, that doesn't bother me. And I celebrate you. But if you can, and we'll find out who all's coming. And if there are uneven numbers, we'll try to pair people together so that we can make it work. It's going to be a lot less expensive to share a room with a friend. So the best thing you can do is bring a friend. There is lots of walking. There's going to be between 4 to 6 miles a day of walking. There's also a lot of bus riding. So like, let's say we're in Qumran. We're going to have to drive from Bethlehem to Qumran. That's going to be at least an hour and a half, 2 hours on the bus. We're going to have to, then we'll walk for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Then we'll get it back on the bus. Then we'll walk for an hour or 2 hours. Then we'll get back on the bus. Then we'll walk for an hour or 2 hours. So it's not all continuous, and it's not going to be like, November will be pleasant weather. It won't be insufferably hot, but it's going to require like 4 to 6 miles a day. Personally, like when I'm in Jerusalem, I'll probably work out at the hotel gym in the morning before breakfast, or I'll go for a run or do something active beforehand. So I don't think like it's an overwhelming amount, but if walking is a struggle, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. You can obviously stay on a bus, but you're going to miss all the adventures. Walking down the Mount of Olives to the Garden of Gethsemane, it's a trek. And so we're going to walk, 2 to 3 hours at a time, especially once we get to Jerusalem, because everything, like, we can't ride a bus inside of Jerusalem anyway. But once we get to Jerusalem, everything's on foot. That'll make more sense when you are there and you can see it, but it's really just alleyways. And so we might spend those 2 days walking most of the day. That's something to kind of also keep in mind. There will be only foreign food. I went on a trip with some friends from our seminary to China, and all the food was like so different, so strange. And they were really excited that every morning they could get McDonald's just to have like a taste of home and something kind of normal. And that made them feel good. That's not this kind of trip. I don't know if you'll see McDonald's. I don't know if you'll see what you'll see inside of the old city of Jerusalem. But the old city of Jerusalem, it's local shops and local vendors. There's not going to be any fast food. When we go to the Sea of Galilee and stuff, I'm sure there's all the fast food restaurants you want around Tel Aviv, but those aren't the places we're going to go. But there will be more food than you can eat. There will be more food than you need. And even though we're going to walk 4 to 6 miles a day, you will probably, if you do it right, come back weighing more than when you went. There will be more food than you need. And it will be good food, and it will be delicious food, but it will be, Near Eastern, Middle Eastern food. There will be hummus at every meal, and there will be lots of fish at every meal. There will be lots of fish at breakfast. There will be lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of bread, lots of rice and grains. Every place we go, we'll eat our breakfast and our dinner in a hotel. And usually those are kind of big buffet in the hotel. In Jerusalem, right, it's going to be this beautiful hotel. In Bethlehem, it'll be a little bit more humble, but it'll still be fresh. It'll still be good quality and delicious. And you don't have to worry about what you're eating. You can go to some countries and you worry about indigestion or getting some kind of traveling sickness. Like, let's say, you're not going to have to worry about that. If they're serving you, if they're fresh fruits and vegetables, you can eat anything they have and it'll be delicious and perfect. Also, this is a group tour. I've traveled a lot. I've traveled a lot on my own, and I prefer that. Like, my favorite way to travel is either by myself or just me and my wife. Like, I love traveling on my own. I hate being part of a group traditionally. And in most places in the world, you don't need to be part of a group. Like, if you go to Italy, you don't need to be part of a tour group. You can just go. You can just buy a one-way ticket to Italy and go live your best life. Take your credit card, and it'll all work out. That's not true in Israel, right? One, because Palestine and Israel are coexisting, but they're not it's not linear how they're divided. And so to drive around, you have to drive around Palestinian checkpoints. At times when we're going in and out of Palestine, you have to drive in and out. It's not easily accessible. I don't know how you would do it as a tourist by yourself. And to travel across the country, you have to travel through around Palestinian areas. That I think would be magnificently complicated. Also because of the tensions in the Near East. I think it's a really complicated thing. So this is, I think, the safest way to travel through Israel and through Jerusalem. I think it's the easiest way because we're going to have like a hotel for you to stay and food for you to eat. And then we'll say, get on the bus at 8:30. And then all you have to do is get on the bus, like right outside the door. And we'll drive you straight to the holy site, to all the places you want to be. And we'll say, okay, now we're at Church of the Beatitudes overlooking the Sea of Galilee. It's beautiful. There's an amazing gardens. They're run by these nuns. They're just so incredible. But we'll say you have 1 hour and we need you back on the bus in an hour. And it's going to be real pleasant if the bus has to wait for you more than once, right? You kind of get one warning, but say, hey, you got to be a team player, because we're trying to hit a lot of spots through the trip. So we're not trying to be jerks, and we're not trying to like cut your time short. But if we say it's an hour, that means it's an hour. Usually because we say, well, if we're going to leave, we want to leave so that we can get to the boat ride and ride a boat across the Sea of Galilee so that we can get to, I don't know, let's say the Gentile area across the Sea of Galilee, so we can eat some fish straight out of the Sea of Galilee. And it's all working on a very kind of tight timeline. So, you know, I know a lot of people who've traveled and say, well, I'll go with the group, but I'll kind of do my own thing. That's not this kind of trip. Like, this is kind of a group tour. You know, if you bring a friend, you know, Kathy, if you bring your husband, Robert, like, you kind of want to make sure you like the person you come with, because you're going to ride on the bus next to him. You're going to spend a lot of time with them. It's easiest if we have the buddy system so that people don't get lost. Say, hey, we're going to go to this holy site. Take your time, but like, make sure you stick with a buddy so that we're kind of in pairs and we can all stick together. Let's see. So we're going to go with a group called Educational Opportunities. After I finish this slideshow, I'll pull up their website just to show you more on their website. But it's a Methodist organization that's been doing this for over 50 years. They started by taking trips to the Holy Land. I would absolutely recommend, if not insist on getting the insurance. The insurance, I think, is another $200. But what happens if you spend that $200 on their insurance is you can get the whole trip refunded. For instance, if there's a global pandemic, or if you get COVID, like, just the reality of where we live, you can't help it if you get COVID, right? Well, you can try to mitigate those chances, but let's say you get COVID a week before the trip, you'd much rather lose that $200 on the insurance than the $3,500 on the trip. So it's much better, if not insisting that you get the insurance, that could give you a full refund if you get sick, or if something comes up and you're unable to go, you know, for something reasonable at the very last minute. And I like EO because it's a one-stop shop, because they're going to take care of everything. As a matter of fact, they're going to take us, you know, to all the tourist places. We're going to ride on clean buses. They're going to give us guides in Palestine who are Palestinian. In Israel, they're going to give us Israeli guides who have master's degrees in archaeology or in tourism, who have trained to do just this thing. Everywhere we go, they'll give us headphones to wear. And there will be, like, whoever our guide is will have a little microphone that he carries around on his neck. So wherever we're at, it doesn't matter if there's 10 other groups at the Wailing Wall, we'll be able to listen on our headphones to our guide speaking directly to us. And we'll have guides along the way. So everywhere we go, they will have somebody that does this full-time professionally with us. They have Americans who live in Israel who will meet us at all the hotels. It's usually retired ministers who have just fallen in love with the company and then work mostly for free. But there will be in Bethlehem an American person who meets us in Bethlehem just to make us feel comfortable and say, hey, if we have any needs, they're there to support us. If we have any needs in Jerusalem, they're there to hang out with us, to be on our team. So EO has this comprehensive package that is run as a ministry. It was founded by Methodist ministers. It's run for Christians. I mean, anyone's welcome to come, but it's a Christian trip run by Christians, you know, to experience these Christian holy sites. So how does it work? Like, I like EO because it simplifies everything. They'll send us a little packet with all the reminders of things you need for packing. It'll have your ticket in it, and it'll have just whatever little information you need. But all you got to do is get dropped off or park your car at the Birmingham airport. Get on the plane at the right time. Arrive in New York. You do have to, like, have some autonomy to be able to get to the gate in New York City. But, you know, flying out of Birmingham is so easy. Birmingham's such a small, you know, airport. It's easy to navigate once you get into JFK. We'll all kind of gather together around that area. It's interesting flying, you know, we'll probably fly on the Israeli Airlines, but they have a secondary security system right before you get on the plane because of the tensions between Palestine and Israel. So even though you've gone through security, even though you're in JFK Airport and you're at the gate, the Israeli security guards will have a secondary check where they'll ask you questions. Why are you going? Who are you going with? But then that's it. Once we arrive, we'll all kind of be sleepy and kind of tired and exhausted, and we'll kind of drag our limp bodies through the airport in Tel Aviv to the baggage claim. And there will be somebody waiting for us in the baggage claim with a big sign that says, St. Thomas Episcopal Church, Birmingham, Alabama. And he's going to be there and he'll help us get all of our bags. And from that moment on, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll grab our bags, put them on the bus. The bus will be waiting right outside. And then from that point on, you are kind of taken care of. You're in the EO, under EO control. Until that moment, they take us back to the airport and drop us off again. As far as what do you need? Very little. We're going to stay in, most likely we'll stay in 3 different hotels, and we're going to have to navigate, at least 4 airports, right? Birmingham, JFK, and then Tel Aviv and back. So I guess kind of 6 times we'll be in different airports. I would recommend bringing as little as possible because you will need to carry everything you bring. And it will get increasingly heavy every time you have to pack up from one hotel to the next. You don't need a lot because you just need some fresh, clean clothes, and a toothbrush, but you will have to carry what you bring. So obviously when we're taking day trips, obviously like if we're walking down the Mount of Olives, we're not going to be carrying our stuff with us, but every day we're going to have to put our stuff on the bus to go to the next hotel or whatever. So what do you need? Not a ton. You need your camera. You need maybe your sunglasses and maybe some swim trunks if you want to swim in the Dead Sea. What are the accommodations like? In Jerusalem, it's going to be great. In Jerusalem, it's going to be really nice. Even though Jerusalem is the old city, it is a modern, everything outside of the old city is as modern as you want. As a matter of fact, to walk at the hotel we stayed in last time, to walk into Jerusalem and through the gate, there are several different gates around Jerusalem. We actually walked through like this brand new mall. There was like, the Gucci stores and Prada stores and, like Rolex stores. I mean, it was like this high-end, super fancy, super expensive store, kind of mall that you'd have to walk through just to get to the entrance into the gate into the old city of Jerusalem. The hotel itself will be beautiful and comfortable and more than you need. In Bethlehem, it'll be as nice as anything there could be offered in Bethlehem. It's not going to be at the same level because, again, the economic impact from the geopolitical reality is like real obvious. It's going to be clean. It's going to be safe. It's going to be safe to eat whatever food is served. It's going to be delicious food, but there will be some disparity. And around the Sea of Galilee, there'll be something in the middle. Tiberias is the main city. And so if we stay in Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee, it will be something in between the two. It's a little bit of a smaller town than Jerusalem, obviously. Like I said, with the food, there'll be plenty of options. There should be something for everybody. There will be lots of meat and cheese and fish at every meal. There will be lots and lots of vegetables. There will be lots of rice and grains and options. It will be Middle Eastern. If you haven't eaten Israeli food, I'd recommend going to Eli Jerusalem's down 280. Eli has, I think, some of the best food. Eli's family is connected to St. Thomas, and I think it's one of the nicest restaurants in all of Birmingham anyway. But go and eat everything on the menu. Go and try one of everything. And what's wonderful about the food at Eli's is that's exactly the kind of food you can expect to eat in Jerusalem. You can expect to eat the salads, all the salads that Eli serves. You can expect to eat the pita, the gyro meat, everything he serves is absolutely exactly what you'll see in Jerusalem. But you will have to be flexible. What you won't have is fast food. Probably won't have fried chicken or hamburgers. And most of the places we stay will be kosher in the sense there will be cheese and might be meat, but it'll be kosher and maybe it'll be separated or on different tables. And so, the way that impacts us, Americans, the first thing people think about is cheeseburgers. You won't have cheeseburgers. But there's a lot of other kind of kosher foods that you won't see. Personally, I've never noticed a big difference. And when I've come back to America, it's not like I'm rushing to eat any special food. The food is always truly amazing. And when I've gone, like, we've had days where I've just had a free day in Jerusalem. I've also felt really comfortable eating street food. And so as we're walking through Jerusalem, or there have been times where we were on the tour and we're just walking through the streets and the stalls, and I felt comfortable just buying, a falafel sandwich on the street because it smelled really good. And even though I wasn't hungry, sometimes the temptation is too great. And so, and I've, anywhere we went, like there are times where you have to stop at, take a pit stop at a gas station. I'd eat any food anywhere in all of Israel and feel very comfortable with that. This is a holy trip. And so, it is for the people who really like church. I think it'd be really hard to go. There's some places like Church of the Holy Sepulchre where we're not going to say prayers because it's like this really complicated system of who owns the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it's divided into 5 different groups: the Eastern Orthodox, the Coptic, Ethiopians, the Roman Catholics, the Russian Orthodox, and probably somebody else. And so they're always fighting for space. And so it's the same with the Church of the Nativity. It's divided, and it's been this way for 1,000 years. And you'll learn more about why that is and how that is. But those are places where we can't stop and say our prayers. Exactly. It's a place where we can stop and be tourists. But like the Coptics and the Eastern Orthodox are going to be like fighting, for the chapel space, and they'll be leading worship, and somebody will be leading worship in those churches at all times. And it's a really interesting dynamic, but it is a dynamic, and it'll be interesting, I hope, for you to learn why they share that space and how they do that. But there will be other places like by the Sea of Galilee where we will be able to celebrate the Eucharist, where hopefully, we can go to the church where Peter meets Jesus for the first time, and or where Jesus meets the disciples after the resurrection and breaks bread with them, and grills fish for them on the sea. And maybe right there we can celebrate the Eucharist. But at a lot of the holy places, we will try to have prayers. We'll try to have a time for reflection and meditation, even if that's just me giving you the scripture of like, hey, we're standing in this place. This is what happened right here. And I give you a paragraph. It might be a 5-minute reflection in some places. It could be a 30-minute reflection in some places, depending on kind of what's allowed and what's appropriate. There's some places like the Temple Mount, where the Dome of the Rock is, where we're not going to be allowed to say prayers at all. It's controlled by the Muslims. And I got my group thrown off last time. We were all there, but I was saying a prayer, but I also looked like I was saying a prayer. And like these cops, security guards jumped out of nowhere and like threw us all out. I thought they were going to arrest me because I looked like I was saying a prayer. And that's super duper not allowed. So we'll have to be mindful of where we're at. We'll be mindful of our time for things, but we'll also try to have some reflections as they are appropriate. Not every night will we have a full group reflection, but there will be some nights where I'll say, hey, after supper, I'm going to offer prayers at this place in the hotel, or maybe we'll meet at a certain place and say prayers. But it's going to be depending on our itinerary and depending on where we're at and what's appropriate. There will also be some nights where we get to the hotel and it's like, you know what? Let's all just have a glass of wine and go to bed and like, see you in the morning. We're all exhausted. I think it's going to be really essential, and I'm going to emphasize this again and again, that this is a team trip, that we're not just going as a group of individuals, we're going as a group. And we're going to kind of live as a group. We're going to eat our meals together in the same places. We're going to also be staying in the same hotel. And so we want to just appreciate that group dynamic, that we want to be mindful of each other. We want to be considerate of each other, and especially of each other's time. So when we say things like, we're going to meet at the bus at 8 a.m., that's like a hard, we're meeting at the bus at 8 a.m. Doesn't mean you got to be there at 7:30, but like by 7:58, you need to be moving that way, What's our daily schedule? It's pretty reasonable. Every day is about 8 to 6. So usually we'll have breakfast, and every day our tour guide, when we get there, we'll have, for the majority of the trip, we're going to have an Israeli tour guide, except when we're in Palestine. But the tour guide will tell us, hey, we're going to meet at breakfast at this time, 7:30 to 8:30 or whatever. And then at 8:30, we're going to get on the bus. So every morning, but it's about 8 to 6. I've never found it exhausting, where it moves at a pretty reasonable clip, that we're never going to be walking for 7 hours straight, or, we're walking for 10 hours and you're ready to drop. After a few hours, either we're going to transition to something else, or we'll transition to the bus where we'll go to the next destination. There will be lots of walking, but there will also be lots of bus riding. To go from Jericho to Galilee, that's like a 2 or 2.5 hour bus ride. It's also, a good portion of the length of Israel. Israel's just a really small country. But look, we're going to be on a bus. Those chances to be on the bus are great for napping. It's great for reflection. It's great for talking to your friend that you brought with you. It's also great just to look out and see the countryside. By the time we get back to Jerusalem, we will have made a significant loop of the body of Israel. We won't have gone to the very northern tip, and we won't have gone to the very southern tip, but we will see the body of Israel in most of its glory. The one area that we won't see is Tel Aviv, which I've never had a problem with, because it's a modern city that doesn't really call to my my interests in the Bible. So what do we need to do? We need to be flexible. It's going to take a lot of flexibility, because every day is going to be something different. Every day is a completely new adventure. We need to be respectful of being in the Near East, and that we are kind of entering the space that is tense. It's tense between Muslims and Jews. It's tense between different factions of Jews. It's tense between the religious and the non-religious. It's not that tense between anybody and Christians. Nobody cares that much about us. As a matter of fact, the first time I went, I was kind of offended at how little anyone cared about us. It's a tension with everyone else, but we still need to be mindful. And so the way we dress, and so the way we comport ourselves. So when we're in Jerusalem, or we're in in Palestine, in Bethlehem, everyone should dress just slightly more modestly. But we'll just want to dress in a way. You don't have to wear a veil. You don't have to be weird about it and try to dress in like some traditional Israeli outfit. Just wear something that's kind of modest, and everybody knows that. I mean, obviously, when we roll up to a Christian holy site as like a giant group of Americans, they know who we are. And so we don't have to wear special things, but you will need to be respectful of the culture. At least one day, you should at least have one outfit that covers most of your body. Whether or not we can go to the Temple Mount or not, I'm not sure. But if we go to the Temple Mount, I don't think women will have to cover their heads, but I think you will have to have like most of your body covered, which it'll be late November, which is probably how we'll be dressing anyway, wearing pants and jackets and stuff, because it'll be, kind of cool and nice. And just be mindful, and we want to be mindful of kind of all of our surroundings. I was thinking about this today. I was going for a jog early in the morning. I said, last year we had 150 people killed in Birmingham, Alabama. It's like a very dangerous city in America. Although I can go for a run in the morning, one, because it's where I'm running in Homewood. It's two, I'm running in the morning, and I'm running in my neighborhood. It's the same way in Israel, that there are issues and there are challenges that they face. We're not going to be in any dangerous situations. We're not going to be exposed to that, but we're going to be mindful of our surroundings. We're going to be mindful of what we do. And we just want to be mindful of everyone around us in the group as well. You don't have to tell me 100%, Josiah, I'm coming, and I'm not going to change my mind, and I'm not going to get COVID. But I would really love to know by January 25th if you're pretty sure you're coming. You can always back out. You can always not come. But I'd like by the 25th, if there's a general idea, if you think, yeah, I think I can do this, give them the information, having thought about it, prayed about it. That's 2 weeks from today. With that information, I can go to EO and I can start to establish all the firm, they can start to put down all the hotel reservations, start to book hotels, what size bus, the cost of the trip depends on how many people come, depending on what size bus we need, if we need a short bus or a big bus, or we split the bus with other people and other groups that get attached to our group. So if you can let me know by the 25th, your general sense that, yeah, I'm in it, or no, I'm not, that would be really helpful for me as we continue to plan this. But again, I understand, like, things happen. Hey, all of a sudden we found out we're pregnant and we're not able to travel, or hey, I found out, I have a chance to go see Taylor Swift in concert, and that's a priority for everything. Hey, I understand, but if you can think about it over the next 2 weeks and start to let me know, that'd be really helpful. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if you have any questions, I invite you to unmute yourself and ask. My favorite, when you're stunned into silence. Shannon, do you have a question?
I have a question. Are the accommodations air conditioned?
I can say it'll be comfortable. I don't know if it'll be air conditioned in Palestine.
Okay.
Whatever it is, it's not ill pleasant. Like, we're not going to be like sweating to death, 100 degrees in the desert. In Jerusalem, it's going to be an amazing hotel. In Bethlehem, you will not be terribly uncomfortable. I can't say exactly because I'm not sure. But again, going in November is going to be pretty cool.
A little cooler. Yeah.
And so,
okay.
I mean, Jerusalem will get cold. Like, Jerusalem will, I don't know if how heavy it snows, but like in the wintertime, it'll be pretty chilly. It's 44 degrees right now in Jerusalem. It's also 3 a.m. So the high tomorrow in Jerusalem is 55 degrees. But, every time we've went around this time, and I usually wear jeans and like a jacket, kind of a light jacket for most of the trip. Carissa, what are you thinking?
You keep mentioning how Bethlehem it's not bad. It's just not 5-star, basically, is what I'm getting from it.
Yeah.
It might be, it sounds like it's 2 or 3 star. It happens. How long are we sleeping in Bethlehem? Is it 1 night, 2 nights?
I think it'll probably be 1 night.
Oh, that's doable.
Yeah. Oh, and you're going to get there and you're going to say, Josiah, this is wonderful. Palestine is in a severe economic crisis. Yeah. Palestine is deeply impoverished, and it's not a million miles away. It's like you can see the guard tower from wherever you're at in Bethlehem. You can see a guard tower from any location, and you can see like the turrets with like people with guns in it and stuff. And on the other side is the land of plenty. It's the land of milk and honey. On the other side of the gate, it's like first world country. All of a sudden, everything's improved. One of the options that I hope we'll have is there's a possibility for an extra fee. It's something like $50 or $60. You can, if you want, and I hope we can do this, that anyone who wants can, for another $50 or $60, skip a meal in Bethlehem and share a meal with a Palestinian family, a Palestinian Christian family. And so maybe we split into groups of 4 or 5 or 6, and we'll go to families who have invited us in, and they'll prepare a meal for us, and we can eat a meal and learn about their life and their story. And it's a really cool experience. So if that's possible, I'd really like to be able to share that with folks who want to go. And last time we went, we did that, and probably 2/3 of the group went and had meals. They were really great. And probably a third just hung back at the hotel and said, we're kind of exhausted and don't feel up for it. So that's fine too. I think, again, I'm going to have to find out how many people can definitely thinking they can come. We can finalize the itinerary between myself and EO. So then we'll know if we're staying 1 night or 2 nights in Bethlehem. Maximum 2 nights. Maximum 2 nights.
Father Joe, if they have indoor plumbing, I'm good. I grew up in a third world country.
Oh, yeah. There'll be indoor plumbing. It'll be great.
Fine.
Yeah, good question. Anybody else have a question?
I do. Do they have, are there special outlets, different than ours that you would need an adapter to plug
Yeah.
something in?
Yes. And I'd recommend Googling what that is. But yes, there you will need a different adapter.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it will be wonderful, Susie. It will be wonderful. And you will see, you'll have an opportunity, if you're into Roman history, you will have an opportunity to see lots and lots of Roman ruins everywhere.
Sure. Sounds wonderful.
Amen.
Any other?
Josiah, I have one
Yes.
question.
Yes.
This is Joni.
Hi, Joni.
There was a section where you talked about the flights and being dropped off at Birmingham and then getting to JFK. Is everyone flying on the same flight? So you're still in a group, it's just you're navigating JFK as a group, or you literally by yourself in JFK?
No, we will all fly out of JFK together. And they'll give you a couple options. When you start planning, when like you say, yes, Josiah, I'm going to go, we'll finalize the itinerary. And then I'll give you like a link to a website on EO. And you'll go to the website and I'll give you all the information. I'll say, here's like the ID number you put in, here's the information. You'll go through and you can pay for the trip right there. But then somebody will contact you and they'll say, hey, Joni, I got your information. Here's 3 different flights to JFK out of Birmingham. You know, what makes sense for you in your life. And so you'll kind of coordinate that first flight, but we will all fly together on the same flight from Israel or from JFK to Israel. We might
So
not
it's
all fly.
possible, it's possible that some people could be on the same flight from.
Oh yeah, for
Birmingham.
sure. And it's also, but it also is possible that people can fly from different airports. So like my mother will probably be flying from Pittsburgh. And so she'll fly from
Right.
Pittsburgh, meet us at JFK. And so we might all fly. It could be that we all fly together from Birmingham. It's but not necessarily. I'm going to pull up. Go ahead. Who was speaking there?
You said lots of, excuse me, vegetables and everything, lots of coffee.
Lots of coffee. As a matter of fact, you know, last time I thought I was going to lose everybody on the trip because I thought I was going to lose the tour because I stopped at just like a street vendor selling coffee because it smelled so stinking good. And everyone just kind of kept going on the trip. And I stopped and it took a lot longer than I was expecting to make this like roadside coffee, but it was fantastic. And it would have been worth it if I lost the group. It would have been worth it. I'm going to share my, there's going to be plenty of coffee. Israeli coffee is, it's a thing. There will probably be drip coffee wherever we go, but Israeli coffee is more like an espresso with the grounds in it at the bottom. And it's usually more aromatic. And so usually that makes in something like cardamom or some other spice in with the coffee. So if you go and say like, I want an Israeli coffee, you can get this at LA Jerusalem as well, but it's usually going to come more like what you think is an Italian espresso with the grounds on the bottom. And so you got to be careful how you drink it. So you don't just like drink the sludge at the bottom. So this is the EO website. And you can go visit them yourself anytime, educational opportunities. They go all around the world and do all kinds of things. Although I think the best thing to do is obviously go on a Holy Land adventure. They have things in Greece, they have things in Egypt, and you can actually add on to our trip. So if you say, hey, this sounds amazing, but I also want to go to Egypt as well, I can help you set that up, that you can go and add on to your trip around the Holy Land. The trip that really what we're looking at is the biblical pathways. This is for 2024, but they have much nicer pictures than I have. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and this is kind of the streets of Jerusalem. Kind of walk through the Dead Sea. These are the places that will go over the 9 days. This is Masada in the desert outside Jericho, or the Sea of Galilee. I mean, guys, doesn't that look beautiful? Obviously, the Dead Sea, you can get in and if you want, put the mud on your face. We'll go to several different archaeological sites. They love some archaeology in Israel, and so it's really exciting. This is Caesarea Maritima and the Jordan River. So, this is what's included in their trip. It's an all-inclusive pricing. It's the entrance and program fees. So it covers all the, there are fees to go to different places, but it's covered in all of this. Headsets, breakfast and dinner every day, first-class hotels, guided tours. Oh, I guess we may be responsible for lunch on your own every day. I can't exactly remember, and I'll sort that out. But there are several times where we stop at places for lunch, and I think we may be responsible for paying for lunch on our own every day. I'll confirm that. But you can see if you go to the website, kind of what's included, and this is the itinerary. Then, of course, if you wanted to, and you can see different dates they offer.